Claire had always been confident about her appearance. As a well-known plus-sized fashion influencer, she used her platform to inspire others to embrace their bodies, regardless of their size. She was traveling to New York for one of the biggest events in the fashion calendar, where she was not only a guest but also a speaker. With her ticket in hand and her luggage packed with the latest plus-size fashion trends, she felt excited and ready for the journey ahead. Upon arriving at the airport, Claire went through the usual procedures: check-in, security, and then on to the boarding gate. She was one of the first in line to board, eager to settle into her seat and rest before the busy days ahead. However, as she approached the gate, one of the airline staff stopped her. The woman, with a polite but firm tone, told Claire that there might be an issue with her seating. Confused, Claire asked for clarification. The staff member hesitantly explained that due to her size, she might need to purchase an additional seat to accommodate airline policies regarding safety and comfort for her and other passengers. Claire was stunned. She had flown numerous times and had never encountered such a problem, especially since she had booked a premium seat to ensure comfort during the flight. The situation escalated quickly as more airline staff gathered, discussing among themselves before approaching Claire again. This time, a man who seemed to be a senior staff member joined the conversation. He repeated the policy, stressing that it was a matter of safety. Claire felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as other passengers began to notice the commotion. Some pulled out their phones, starting to record the scene that unfolded. Despite the growing audience, Claire stood her ground. She explained calmly yet firmly that she had flown many times with this airline and had never been asked to buy an extra seat. She pointed out that her seat was specifically chosen to accommodate her comfortably, and that she had even called ahead to confirm this would not be a problem. The discussion went back and forth, with the airline staff insisting on their policy. Claire felt humiliated and singled out, her excitement for the fashion event quickly turning into frustration and distress. As the argument continued, Claire could hear whispers and see flashes from passengers' phones as they recorded. She knew this incident could not just be about her, but was a reflection of a larger issue that many faced silently. Determined not to be bullied into submission, Claire demanded to speak to a higher authority, refusing to move from the spot until the matter was resolved fairly. Claire's insistence on a fair resolution brought a tense silence to the boarding area. The supervisor, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, approached, having been briefed by his team. He repeated the policy more firmly, suggesting that the regulations were clear and non-negotiable. Claire, feeling the weight of the surrounding stares, struggled to maintain her composure as her humiliation deepened with each passing moment. Despite the supervisor's firm stance, Claire knew she had to stand up not just for herself, but for others who might face similar discrimination. She explained again, her voice steady but clear, that she had taken all necessary precautions to comply with airline policies by selecting a seat that would accommodate her comfortably and respect the space of others. Her arguments, however, seemed to fall on deaf ears as the supervisor pointed to the fine print on her ticket and the airline's terms and conditions. The situation escalated as more passengers began taking interest. Whispers turned into murmurs of disapproval against the airline's handling of the situation. Among the crowd, a young woman stepped forward, her phone in hand, recording the entire ordeal. She told Claire that she was live streaming the incident, believing that the public should see how such situations were handled. The live stream quickly attracted a growing number of viewers, sparking an immediate reaction across social media platforms. As the confrontation drew more attention, other passengers began to voice their support for Claire. A few recounted their own stories of embarrassing scrutiny by airline staff over various issues, expressing solidarity with Claire's predicament. The collective disapproval added pressure on the airline staff, who were now visibly uneasy under the critical gaze of the public. Claire, bolstered by the support, argued that the issue was bigger than just one seat on one flight. It was about the dignity and respect that every passenger deserved, regardless of their size. She pointed out that the airline's policy, if indeed as rigid as they claimed, needed reconsideration to accommodate the diversity of its passengers. The supervisor, realizing the situation was spiraling and becoming a public relations nightmare, suggested they discuss the matter in private away from the growing crowd. Claire agreed, hoping to resolve the issue without further embarrassment. As she followed him to a quieter spot, the crowd of supporters clapped and cheered for her, and the woman live streaming gave her a thumbs up, whispering that thousands were now watching and supporting her online. Claire walked away from the gate, not as a defeated passenger, but as a representative of many who had suffered similar indignities, her resolve strengthened by the unexpected support. In a quieter corner of the airport, the supervisor, who introduced himself as Mr. Thompson, looked significantly more uncomfortable away from the eyes of the public. Claire, although emotionally drained, felt a surge of determination to see this through not just for herself, but for everyone who was silently watching and rooting for her. Mr. Thompson began by reiterating the airline's policy, emphasizing that it was designed to ensure safety and comfort for all passengers. However, Claire interrupted him, pointing out that while she understood the need for rules, the policy must be applied with a sense of fairness and respect for individual circumstances. She explained that being asked to leave the plane or purchase an additional ticket at the gate was neither fair nor respectful. As they spoke, Claire's phone buzzed continuously with messages of support and media inquiries. News of the incident had spread like wildfire, catapulting her into the spotlight as the face of a potential discrimination case against the airline. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Mr. Thompson's tone shifted from defensive to conciliatory. He acknowledged that the situation could have been handled better and apologized for the distress caused. Seeing an opportunity to make a real impact, Claire proposed that they use this incident as a learning experience to review and possibly revise the airline's policies regarding passenger treatment, especially in unique situations like hers. She emphasized that inclusivity and adaptability could enhance the airline's reputation and customer satisfaction. Mr. Thompson, perhaps realizing the potential PR disaster at hand, agreed that this incident had highlighted a need for a more nuanced approach. He suggested setting up a meeting with higher management to discuss Claire's experience and her suggestions for policy improvements. Claire agreed, requesting that outcomes of these discussions be shared publicly to ensure that this situation led to positive change. Before they parted, Mr. Thompson offered Claire a business-class seat on the next flight to her destination as a gesture of goodwill and an acknowledgement of the inconvenience caused. Claire accepted, knowing that this offer was just a small part of a much larger issue she was now determined to address. She walked back to the terminal, her resolve firm and her spirit lifted by the support of strangers who now looked at her not just as a victim, but as a voice for change. As Claire prepared for her rescheduled flight, she felt a mix of nervousness and excitement about the potential impact her unfortunate experience could have on making air travel more accommodating for all. This was no longer just about a flight. It was about challenging and changing an industry standard. Once settled on her new flight, Claire's phone was a flurry of activity. The video of her ordeal at the gate had gone viral, sparking heated discussions across various social media platforms. People from all walks of life were commenting, many sharing their own stories of similar experiences. The issue had struck a chord, highlighting a common problem many faced, but few spoke about publicly. As her story spread, Claire received an outpouring of support from the online community. Influencers, celebrities, and everyday users were rallying behind her, using hashtags like #SizeDoseMatter and #FairTreatmentForAll. The debate around airline policies and how they affect plus-sized passengers was now at the forefront of a broader conversation about inclusivity and respect in the service industry. News outlets caught wind of the viral sensation and were quick to reach out to Claire for comments. She gave interviews over the phone, her words resonant and clear. She spoke not only about her own humiliation, but also about the systemic changes needed to prevent such incidents from happening to others. Her story was featured on major news websites, and snippets of her interviews were played on television, bringing further attention to the issue. Amidst the media frenzy, Claire remained focused on using her unexpected platform to advocate for change. She connected with advocacy groups for plus-sized rights and began collaborating with them to campaign for more inclusive practices in the airline industry. Her message was clear. Policies needed to be updated to reflect the diversity of the traveling public. Back at the airline's headquarters, executives were in damage control mode. The viral nature of the incident had caught them unprepared, and they were keenly aware of the negative impact on their public image. They issued a public statement apologizing for the incident, acknowledging that their staff's actions did not reflect the company's values of respect and dignity for all passengers. The statement also promised a review of their policies to ensure that they fostered an inclusive environment for all customers. Meanwhile, Claire's social media profiles were flooded with messages of solidarity and gratitude. Many expressed their admiration for her courage in standing up against what they saw as an injustice. Others thanked her for speaking out, saying that her visibility was a beacon of hope for those who felt marginalized in similar situations. The conversation Claire ignited was bigger than just one flight or one airline. It had evolved into a dialogue about dignity, respect, and the need for systemic change across an industry. As she continued her journey to the fashion event, Claire felt a profound sense of responsibility and purpose. She knew that the real work was just beginning, but she was ready to lead the charge. Claire barely had time to process everything before her phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email from the airline's public relations team. They wanted to arrange a formal meeting with her and senior executives to discuss the policies that led to her removal from the flight. They expressed regret for how she had been treated and acknowledged that the situation could have been handled better. Claire read the message carefully, knowing that this was an important step in the right direction, but she wasn't about to let them simply brush the issue aside with an apology. By the time she landed in New York, her story had become one of the biggest trending topics online. Major news channels were running segments about her experience, and the hashtag We Deserve Better had gained traction across social media. It was no longer just about Claire. It had turned into a movement. People from around the world were sharing their own experiences with airlines, from unfair treatment to policies that failed to consider different body types. Claire knew that if she handled this right, real change could come from it. Once she arrived at her hotel, she sat down with her manager to strategize before responding to the airline's request for a meeting. She didn't just want an apology, she wanted real action. Airlines needed to reconsider how they accommodated all passengers, ensuring that no one else had to go through what she did. Claire drafted a response, agreeing to the meeting but making it clear that she expected more than just a public relations move. Meanwhile, the airline continued to face backlash. Customers were calling for better policies, and advocacy groups were pushing for new regulations that would prevent such incidents from happening again. The pressure was mounting, and it was clear that Claire's voice had become one of the loudest in the conversation. As the days passed, Claire remained active on social media, engaging with the thousands of people who had reached out to her. She read stories from individuals who had experienced similar struggles but had never spoken up, either out of fear or because they believed nothing would change. This only fueled her determination. If the airline truly wanted to make amends, they had to prove it with actions, not just words. The airline soon released another statement, announcing that they were reviewing their seating policies and employee training to ensure that all passengers were treated with dignity and respect. Claire saw this as a small victory, but knew that promises meant nothing without follow-through. She prepared for her upcoming meeting, ready to hold them accountable and push for meaningful changes. As she looked at the messages of support on her phone, she realized how much bigger this had become. What started as a humiliating moment had turned into an opportunity to make a real impact, and she wasn't going to waste it. The day of the meeting arrived, and Claire felt a mixture of nerves and determination as she walked into the airline's headquarters. She had spent the past few days preparing, gathering stories from people who had faced similar situations, and consulting with experts who understood airline policies. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about creating real change. She was greeted by a team of executives, including the airline's customer relations director and a few senior decision-makers. They looked tense, clearly aware of the pressure they were under. Claire took her seat, determined not to let them control the conversation with rehearsed apologies and empty promises. The meeting began with one of the executives expressing their regret over what had happened. He acknowledged that the situation was poorly handled and that the company wanted to take steps to ensure it never happened again. Claire listened carefully but didn't let them off the hook so easily. She explained how their policies unfairly targeted plus-sized passengers, making them feel unwelcome and embarrassed. She pointed out that many customers had similar experiences, but were too afraid or ashamed to speak up. One of the executives shifted uncomfortably before responding. He admitted that while the airline had policies in place, they were outdated and didn't reflect the needs of all passengers. He assured Claire that the company was open to making improvements. That was when Claire pressed forward. Words weren't enough. She wanted action. She laid out her demands. Airlines needed to provide clearer information on their policies before customers booked flights, not just surprise them at the gate. They should offer better seat options without penalizing plus-size travelers with extra charges. Most importantly, staff training had to change. Employees needed to learn how to handle sensitive situations with empathy and respect, rather than causing public humiliation. The executives listened carefully, exchanging looks before agreeing that her points were valid. They promised to start an internal review, working with experts to create a more inclusive and fair approach. Claire made it clear that she wouldn't just take their word for it. She wanted transparency. She requested updates on their progress and asked them to publicly announce their commitment to making these changes. By the end of the meeting, Claire could tell that she had made an impact. Whether or not the airline would follow through, only time would tell, but she had done her part in making sure they were held accountable. As she left the building, she checked her phone and saw hundreds of messages from supporters asking how the meeting had gone. She took a deep breath before posting an update. She told her followers everything: the good, the bad, and the promises made. She made it clear that this wasn't the end of the fight. Real change didn't happen overnight, but this was a step in the right direction. She thanked everyone who had stood by her and encouraged them to keep pushing for fairness in all industries. As she walked away, Claire felt something she hadn't expected when this ordeal began. Hope. Hope that one person's voice could lead to something bigger. Hope that no one else would have to experience what she did. And hope that, for once, the world was truly listening. In the days following the meeting, Claire kept a close eye on the airline's actions. She had been in situations before where companies made promises, but never followed through. This time, she was determined to ensure that real changes happened. She kept the pressure on, using her platform to remind people why this conversation mattered. Every day, more individuals shared their own experiences with unfair treatment, adding to the growing demand for change. Meanwhile, the airline publicly announced that they were officially reviewing their policies regarding seating and passenger treatment. They confirmed that new training programs for their staff were being developed, focusing on how to handle sensitive situations with respect and understanding. Claire was pleased to see the announcement, but she knew that words meant nothing without action. As weeks passed, the movement continued to gain momentum. Other airlines began to take notice, with a few even reaching out to Claire, asking for her input on how they could improve their own policies. She realized that this was bigger than just one company. Her story had sparked a shift in the entire airline industry. Then, an unexpected email arrived in Claire's inbox. It was from a representative of an international airline regulatory group. They had seen her story and wanted to invite her to a panel discussion about inclusivity in travel. It was an opportunity to take the conversation beyond social media and directly influence industry-wide policies. Claire felt a rush of excitement. This was exactly what she had hoped for: real conversations that could lead to lasting change. At the same time, her personal journey was also changing. Because of everything that had happened, She had gained thousands of new followers who admired her for speaking out. People from all over the world sent her messages of encouragement, thanking her for standing up against discrimination. Some even told her that her bravery had given them the confidence to fight for their own rights in different areas of life. As Claire prepared for the panel discussion, she reflected on how far she had come. Just a short time ago, she had been standing at an airport gate, humiliated and frustrated. Now she was being given a platform to make real change. It was proof that sometimes the most difficult moments in life could lead to the most powerful opportunities. She knew the fight wasn't over, but progress was being made. More airlines were reevaluating their policies, and passengers were becoming more aware of their rights. Claire had become a symbol of resilience, proving that one person's voice could challenge an entire industry. As she packed her bags for the upcoming panel event, she felt a sense of purpose unlike anything she had experienced before. She wasn't just a fashion influencer anymore. She was an advocate for fairness and dignity in travel, and she was ready to take this fight as far as it needed to go. Claire arrived at the panel discussion feeling both nervous and excited. She had spoken at fashion events before, but this was different. This time, she wasn't just representing herself. She was speaking for thousands of people who had faced discrimination while traveling. As she stepped onto the stage, she saw a packed audience, including airline executives, travel experts, and journalists eager to hear what she had to say. The discussion began with the moderator introducing the topic, fairness and inclusivity in air travel. Claire listened as different panelists shared their views, some defending airline policies while others argued for change. When it was her turn to speak, she took a deep breath and told her story. She described the embarrassment she had felt that day at the airport and how the airline's policies had made her feel like she didn't belong. She also spoke about the overwhelming support she had received and how her story had started a movement. She shared messages from passengers who had experienced similar struggles but had remained silent out of fear. She made it clear that this wasn't just about her. It was about every person who had ever been made to feel unwelcome while traveling. The audience listened intently as Claire called for clear, fair policies that treated all passengers with dignity. She pushed for better seating options, more transparency when booking tickets, and proper training for airline staff. She made a strong case for change, arguing that airlines had a responsibility to accommodate all passengers, not just those who fit into a certain standard. When she finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. Some airline executives nodded in agreement, while others looked thoughtful. It was clear that her words had made an impact. After the panel, several journalists approached Claire for interviews, eager to spread her message even further. Some airline representatives also reached out, wanting to discuss ways to improve their services. Claire knew that not everyone would act on their promises, but she was determined to keep pushing until real changes happened. As she walked out of the event, she checked her phone and saw countless messages of support. Her followers were celebrating her courage, and advocacy groups were thanking her for bringing attention to an issue that had long been ignored. Claire smiled, realizing that this was only the beginning. In the following months, airlines began announcing new policies, promising better seating options and improved staff training. Some even invited Claire to help shape their inclusivity programs. Seeing these changes unfold, she felt proud of how far things had come. Claire had started this journey as a fashion influencer, but she had become something more, an advocate for fairness, a voice for change. She knew there was still work to be done, but for now, she was content knowing that she had turned a painful experience into something powerful. As she boarded her next flight, this time without any issues, she looked out the window and smiled. The world was changing, and she had played a part in making it happen.